The world in general and businesses are more informed about marketing, and there are a lot more options in the way we can spend marketing budgets. So we've got, lots of different channels, possibilities within those channels. And equally, marketing is one of those subjects in a business that everyone can have an opinion about because we're all customers in our daily lives. Marketing is very visible.
As a brand and a business, when you start to overproduce content, you start to lose out on usage. You're putting your attention on things that are not so much important. You've created a particular story, you've created a particular point of view, post it, create the content, post it, gone. When you overproduce, then they're laying there and it's moving, like things move in seconds. The content you produced 5 hours ago becomes irrelevant almost on the next day. So when you do produce content, understand why you're producing that piece of content, use it, move along, next please. So don't over budgets for loads of content.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of FAM. I'm Tom Newbould, one of your hosts for the day. And today we're concentrating on marketing budgets and how they're changing as we go into 2026. I'm joined by Adebola, who's going to be giving us all her views about this topic as well. So some of the interesting facts and figures floating around right now is, according to a recent survey of 250 marketing executives, 84% reported pressure to prove ROI to justify or get more budget. 61% of them said that they don't use ROI when making marketing strategy decisions. And in 2025, another survey of marketers found 59% expect business to improve, but only 19% expect marketing budgets to increase. So we're here today to talk about the whole project of how marketers convince the business to give them more money to spend, and also the views that, different people in the executive team or the business might take on what the marketing budget should be.
Let's be honest, Tom. Budgeting used to be part of marketing that nobody loved to look forward to. We just ate at the spreadsheets, negotiations, last year's numbers versus this year. But I don't think that that's the world that we live in anymore. And yes, my name is Adebola, and thanks, Tom, for the introduction. And of course, we're back again for another episode. And today we're talking about marketing budgets in the age of AI, in a time where leaders are actually expected to be, surgical with the way they spend, with their creative, the strategy, how they're fearless in the market, because the whole lane is open now. So how do you come into that yet with a budget stringing you back to say, hey, don't go overboard, So it's all changed how we justify, optimize, and prioritize our marketing. So if you've ever wondered, what should I be paying for? What can AI actually make more efficient? And where does the money go? This episode, it's yours. So let's get into it. Tom, I'm asking you a question first.
Okay.
What do you think has changed in the way businesses actually think about marketing budgets in the last 5 years?
Well, that's a great question to start with. And I think part of that is that the world in general and businesses are more informed about marketing. And there are a lot more options in the way we can spend marketing budgets. So we've got, lots of different channels, possibilities within those channels. And equally, marketing is one of those subjects in a business that everyone can have an opinion about because we're all customers in our daily lives. Marketing is very visible, and people can form an impression about what things cost, which may or may not be accurate. So I think, the world is evolving where people are more informed generally, people are more informed in the business, and that brings certain expectations. So if you look at some of those expectations, part of that will be that marketing is expected to deliver a great return to the business, that marketing is expected to really engage with customers and be quite vibrant in certain contexts. And equally, the cost pressures in any business are not getting less, so they're always getting greater. So that leads to certain expectations from the chief financial officer, for example, more than ever, increasingly. And that's against the backwind, of course, of marketing technology being far more developed, far more efficient. We've got things like AI that you know very, very well that can basically help a team get more from less. So I think, the way that the shift has occurred is the expectations on a marketing budget and what it can achieve for a business are higher than ever, but that doesn't mean that there's more money available. Marketers really have to fight for every pound, every £100, and then go on to deliver what the business expects from that budget. Also, I think budgeting is harder because there are more shifts, inflation, we've got attribution gaps, we've got short-term and long-term pressures and expectations. So, the temptation to do a campaign that will give a short-term success versus a longer-term investment in the brand is something that most marketers would come up against today.
Wow. Like I really like the part of the CFO that you mentioned because I have a feeling that going into meetings these days, I'm like, these CFOs are also beginning to use AI quite a bit because their questions are becoming harder to answer. So usually before now, you just say to the CFO, we don't have data, we can forecast that long, all of that, but that is all going. They're saying, go and use your tools and get me your forecastability. I need to see not just your activity, I need to see exactly how you're forecasting. And that is becoming a reality for many marketers that we can't just throw in the fancy metrics, we call them the vanity metrics, right? So we can't just throw them all in and think that, hey, a wool is pulled. No, they're pulling those wools way off their faces and then saying, AI is in there now. You need to tell me how every pound is leading to value for the business. And I guess that's a challenge. That's a challenge that marketers have to step up to. We can't just take a back seat when it comes to making those strategic decisions for the way we spend for marketing, or else our budgets will be cut. And then when it's time for us to be super creative and actually make things happen, they won't be there. So we can't be afraid of those tough questions. And because of that, like I'm cutting down so that this person doesn't have to argue with me. No, this is an opportunity for you to skill up as well to say, how will the CFO look at my numbers? How will they interpret my numbers? What are they looking at so that I can be ready to answer those questions? That way, my budgets get passed and I can constantly continue to still do the things that are important for the brand and for the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the things you mentioned there, particularly around vanity metrics,
Yes.
vanity metrics, I suppose in the old days when, we had the same types of data available to us,
Yeah.
lots of marketing teams would put that on the table and say, here are the results from marketing. It would be expressed in number of visitors to the website, number of impressions, click-through rate. And these are still operational marketing metrics, but they're
Yeah.
not necessarily regarded anymore to be important to the top level of a business. It's more about what did those things give me as a business? What's the bottom line for marketing? And, I think that's one of the ways in which marketing has evolved, because as you say,
Yeah.
if you've got a spreadsheet of results from any marketing tool or any piece of marketing data, anyone in the business can run that through AI, data analyst, GPT, or anything like that, and say summarize the key highlights of this data. So marketers are always a little bit on the back foot, but should be confident about saying, if I have this budget, this is what I can achieve. And quite often, in a budget, it is set out in a spreadsheet. Very often that's the typical way, as you said
Yeah.
at the beginning. What a marketer and a marketing team has to be able to do is say, for that money, for that amount of money and the breakdown of the money, this is what I expect to deliver for the business, and build a picture of how that's going to be valuable or invaluable to the business. So, it's all about being able to communicate, and marketers are usually very good communicators, communicate
Yeah.
what the business should expect from that budget.
This is real gem. Like seriously, like what we're discussing now is something that would become very practical for marketers. And let's be real, the age of AI is also an expensive age. I run an organization where we're building AI infrastructure for organizations today. I know the bills because to create data, automate things, clean up data and all of the likes, put in those customer touch points and automate them with AI, it can be expensive at the beginning of it. But does it mean that it's not relevant or important? I don't think not. So I really feel that we need to, as marketers, need to understand that money is going to be a big part of this change into AI with marketing.
Mm.
But you just need, like Tom said, you should be able to confidently justify the existence of everything, every line of budget on your spreadsheet. If you're able to do that, I think you're a winner, like super winner in as a CMO or someone within the marketing team leading for the next phase. So Tom,
Definitely.
I'm good. Yeah, you want to say add
Yeah,
something,
I
Tom?
just wanted to add one more. I
Yeah,
mean, the stat from another survey, and I keep
yeah.
mentioning these different surveys, but it said 82% of senior marketers say that their budgets face higher scrutiny than a year ago. So,
Mm,
exactly what we've said, marketers are going to have to be more proofed about this is what the business is going to get from this amount of money
yeah.
and be able to, as the year progresses in 2026, some things will go well, some things won't go well. But the balance of that should be that we're going in the right direction, and this is why. So data remains, important in that conversation as well.
If we then start to look at the non-negotiables, now that we have this, we've set up the foundation for this conversation. Great. But what are the non-negotiable budget lines for a modern marketing team going into 2026? So those non-negotiables, they will change, I know, but for you, Tom, what do you think should be on every CMO or marketing team's budget line?
That's a really good question, and I think the first one,
Yeah.
because the temptation, particularly for people who don't understand marketing in a business, would be let's do everything direct response. Let's put a direct sales message out there that people will respond to, more so than let's build the brand. Let's build, do brand campaigns that are less directly correlated to what the customer is specifically looking for and more about, this is what our business is about, its values. Here are some of the people in the business. One of the fundaments of every marketing budget I've always had has been that we can invest a minimum of 20% in brand building campaigns.
Mhm.
And that's a minimum. In some contexts, it needs to be bigger than that. But
Yeah.
what that does, and there was some survey information and a chart that exists that shows where a brand is powerful in its market. So it's had a series of years of investment into that brand. The
Mhm.
return to shareholders is 98% higher, and that was measured across 8,000 different businesses. So
Yeah.
investing in the brand, although we're in this era of being able to get very, very precise messaging for different persona types and different cohorts of people, never forget to invest in the brand. And that will be a mix of advertising, PR events, lots of different creatives. And I think that should always be in there.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Yeah,
go on, or should
please
we
go
do a
on. Go on.
do
Yeah,
it?
go
So,
on. Yeah.
another thing I think, I'm a massive, massive believer in the power of digital in terms of digital channels being able to reach people very efficiently and reach people repeatedly because marketing in lots of businesses, particularly B2B businesses, is a drip feed process. It's not a one message will produce the sale. It's over a
Yeah.
period of time. It's lots of different channels, lots of different campaigns. And the sum effect of that is that someone will, when they're ready, they'll approach your business. So I think, digital channels, what they do is they level the playing field because it's not always about the biggest budget gets the best results. It's about working smartly in those digital channels and working very efficiently. And we've got the data, as you know, Adebola, in these digital channels to
Yeah.
make ads really land. And particularly at the top of the funnel, digital ads are a real leveler. So a business can compete against teams with more budget, more people using the digital ad channels. And there's so many of them to pick from. We've got everything from Google AdWords to retargeting to, display ads across different media websites. We've got LinkedIn where we can flight digital campaigns. So there's and other places. So there's lots of potential to get in front of your customers using digital. And the execution of that doesn't require you to have a big digital team anymore. There's lots of ways in which you can manufacture that, whether that's using an agency, whether it's using someone, a freelancer, maybe off somewhere like Fiverr, or through an
Mhm.
internal team. So there's lots of different ways, and it's a real um, opportunity for a business, I think. Would you? You've probably seen that time and time again in some of your roles at Ebola.
Yes, number one, I agree totally with you on brand building, especially just because of the memory it brings, the trust it brings, the differentiation it brings. It adds a lot to the brand. So that for one cannot leave your budget your budget line. It needs to be stuck there. However, what just becomes important is the expectation on ROI on them is changing. So you need to start to think about it and say, if I'm putting brand building now in the age of 2026, what exactly is the return
Mm,
I'm measuring? What exactly am I looking forward to? How do I want to show relevance? How do I want to show value in the way we're building brand? And I like what you said about digital all, but breaking that down as well into content and creative is to say, hey,
mm,
your content is king, queen, I don't know how many prince, princess, whatever it is in the royal family, in the age we're in right now. So the only difference as well is the human ideas are beginning to be more important. Only that we're using AI assisted execution. So
mm,
you need your teams, and that's, I guess, we always talk about, oh, what happens to your marketing teams? You need your teams. They need to bring the human ideas that guide the AI execution. But your content and your creatives is going to be what really differentiates you. So don't lose those within your budget line. Take them from the bottom, take them to number two, if you ask me, so that they're able to guide the way you build, so that you can then spread the outcome of that build into the other areas. Do you have any others?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just a final point on those digital channels and
Yeah,
the creative and
yeah,
content side of
yeah,
things that you mentioned.
yeah,
You could have a perfectly built digital campaign in a particular ad channel,
yeah,
but it will fail definitely without the right creative and the right destination. So, the right landing page enriched with content, the right creative in the ads. These are things that
ah,
are so closely related that again, as you say, they've got to be in the budget. I think on top of that, you've got certainly for some businesses, events will be absolutely critical. You've got to be at those events, be present, make yourselves known at the events with,
yeah,
a stand and a presence that stands out. We, in Timeline where I work, at the moment, we do a stack of events throughout the year. Probably as many as any other business, if not more. And the perspective we have on those is if we're going to be there, we need to make it meaningful. We need to engage with lots of people and we need to make sure people can see us. So events are great because they put you in directly in front, in person of potential customers who will then follow up that exploration of you as a business. So I think events aren't the cheapest thing to do, but I think they're
yeah.
important to consider in there. And then coming off both things, we get
No,
people.
before you go up to both things, I was going to just chase you a bit on the event part.
Yeah.
How do you then say, is that performance or is that branding? Is that like, do you know what I mean? Like, is that the performance bit? Is that where you're like, oh, we're just showing off? But does real value really come out from events, come out from events? A lot of
Yeah,
marketers struggle with that.
I'd say it's in lots of contexts it's both. So a sales team would look at the event, they'd probably be manning the stand. They're going to look at the success of the event in terms of leads. So that's inquiries they get on the day
Okay.
or opportunities to follow up with a person who's been in front of them. They've spoken to them, they've engaged them, they've told them about the business. I think marketers would look at it more in the round. So of course we want those leads, but we're making giving people the chance to form an impression of us as a business. So if you're not at the event, that's almost an opportunity lost because you're not there, you're not showcasing the brand, you're not meeting people, and you're not getting leads. So there's an opportunity cost of not being there, which is important to consider. So we would look at those events as we want the sales colleagues to say, yeah, that was a great event. We had loads of people coming to the stand. We had loads of people inquiring and it was great. But we also want to, acknowledge that by being there, that's a
Yeah.
value add to the brand. We show that we're credible, we're turning up and showing up. We're supporting the event in what it's designed to do. So there's definitely a brand win there as well.
Fantastic. I like that. I really like that. Did you want to add anything else? Because I have another sharp take question for you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of it. So in just thinking about what should be in a budget, I think,
Yes.
the degree of marketing technology definitely has to be in there, which is,
Yeah.
you know, uh, in there and it's going to evolve. Equally, CRM should be front and center in there. I think any marketing budget has to see one of the effects of this extra scrutiny and budgets being tight is that sometimes marketing teams will feel restricted by that. And we know that part of being a successful marketing team is to have the ability to do test and learn, to experiment,
Yeah.
to flight different tests in terms of creatives or landing pages, where there's an A/B test. So, in that budget, in the ideal budget, there should be room to be able to do that, to experiment, to try new things, to evolve. And I think that has to be in there as well.
Just to add to your CRM bid, I think this is going to be the year when we do pop the fireworks on the 1st of January, that a lot of CRM companies versus also the customers using their tools are going to realize that CRM is not optional anymore. We'll waste their time, but at the end of the day, it will deliver for them the value they need. Because at the end of the day, we just want a platform that gives us good data, helps us to connect that data, makes it clean, and helps us to have first party data infrastructure that actually helps us talk to our customers the way they want to be spoken to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, CRM should be at the heart of any marketing strategy, I think because particularly over that period of relationship, it's not going to be a first contact and sale necessarily. I
Yeah.
think, looking at how that works in, let's say, some financial advice businesses is, remember, financial advice is trust-based, relationship-led. So when you're trying to look at that in terms of marketing ROI, it won't be immediate. So some of the common issues there will be some advisory firms don't have integrated CRM and marketing automation, so they can't track the customer journey. Um, they'll Leads will convert slowly. So again, there's no return immediately on the marketing investment. And also, I think both in financial advice firms and generally,
Yeah.
it's hard to attribute which touch points actually influence a new client, particularly where you don't have good CRM. So these are all important points, that form part of a modern marketing function, notwithstanding that some businesses don't have a marketing function or they're just thinking about, do we need a marketing person? So, there's like an evolutionary process we would go through from zero to perfect, where we can bring these things on the pitch. CRM is one of the first places, which usually evolves out of some sort of email marketing tool, doesn't it? Like the entry level tool, then evolves into the fully blown CRM, and then we can really start to fly in terms of automation, workflows, etc., sequencing, all
Yeah.
of this jazz, as I would call it.
So what do businesses when they think about what they need to spend on, what do
Mm.
you think they shouldn't be spending on, but they think that they should spend on? Do you have any takes on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's as we know, there's two things we know. So one
Yeah.
is anyone can spend marketing budget. We don't have to be a genius to spend it. We can, but a lot of that in the wrong hands can be wasted. And time again, businesses have gone through that process of getting spend wrong.
Yeah.
Equally, there'll be a huge amount of people out there that will try and get that budget off us. So they'll be coming to us on a daily basis saying, I've got this great thing, spend your marketing budget with me, and the world will be a wonderful place. But time and time again, that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I think the things that I would always look for, and it used to be that So I'll give you an example actually. So in my inbox, we'll hit something like, we've got this great opportunity in a national newspaper, which is going to reach 10,000 of your customers. Um, we've got this amazing price. It's only available for a week. Now, can we speak today about it? Now, straight away on every level, that's raising red flags because, first of all, why would it be so cheap? How do they know there's X number of thousands of my customers going to read this thing? And why is it only available to me now? It's one of those offers. I get them every few months. And
Mm.
usually there's some common factors. One is it's not from the actual publication, it's from some sort of agent of the publication. Secondly, it's one of those supplements in that paper, that no one reads that they normally put in the bin. And thirdly, it's not appropriate because, I don't, it'll be a consumer facing publication like The Independent or, The Telegraph. So what these people are they're trying to trap me in on the basis of a national newspaper name, and they're thinking I'll think, oh, national newspaper will suddenly get loads of business. So that's something I would just be cautious generally about any offer like that. Anyone approaching you with something that sounds good, too good to be true, whether that's an email, a phone call, a LinkedIn message, there's lots of things that will be too. And there's a lot right now floating around about lead generation. They'll start.
Yeah,
Have you struggled to get leads?
yeah.
Um, and
They all
I'm lucky
sound the
because we
same
can
at
say
this
no,
point.
we haven't struggled to get leads. We definitely haven't struggled to get leads, but a lot of people will be looking for leads.
Yeah,
So we've got this great solution that will do that, and there'll be some sort of contract that gets signed, and the
yeah.
business can't reverse out of it. So I would just say watch out for those offers that sound
Too
too
good
good
to
to
be
be
true.
true. Um,
Fantastic.
Equally, I think there are some channels that are harder to execute than others that require a bit of expertise, a combination of expertise,
Hmm.
test and learn, and luck sometimes. So
Yeah.
the more expensive a channel is, the more care needs to be taken.
Mm.
So classically, TV, radio, out of home, these are big investments that you can't get wrong, and they might not be right for your business. They
Yeah.
might be something for next year, the year after. So I think the agile channels, as I'll call them, CRM, digital ads, social channels, they're the ones that are usually we can turn them off and on, can't we? We can
Yeah.
stop a campaign, we can turn it off, we can pause it. These are directly controllable, and that's what we need when we're testing and learning, we're evolving, we're growing as a business.
Cool. Working in an agency, there's something I'm seeing constantly now, either building campaigns for customers or having to see my counterparts build campaigns, is the fact that a lot of businesses are getting so invested in overproducing content.
Mm,
Content has become like oil, which is great. So people have to constantly come up with content. I always feel for the influencers sometimes because they have to be on bad days, on good days, they have to show up and create content so that their pages move. But imagine as a brand and a business, when you start to overproduce content, you start to lose out on usage. You're putting your attention on things that are not so much important. You've created a particular story, you've created a particular point of view, post it, create a content, post it,
mm,
gone. When you overproduce, then they're laying there and it's moving, like things move in seconds. The content you produced 5 hours ago becomes irrelevant almost on the next day. So when you do produce content, understand why you're producing that piece of content,
mm,
use it, move along. Next, please. So don't over budgets for loads of content.
mm.
And then you find, I'll give a good example. We spoke to a particular CEO and he wanted to talk about some leadership tips, just some leadership ideas, how to be a leader in this age, yada, yada. So he did 8 takes on that, 8 video takes of different aspects of that. And then the next time he's at an event, he's already speaking about another subject matter. So
Mm.
you had used one of the 8 that you recorded. Now,
Yeah,
because he's at another event, he has an opportunity to create content. He's creating on another subject matter about leadership. All the other 7 within that are now gone into a box because you can't use them right now because there's a more relevant, important, fresh
yeah,
update come up. You get what I mean?
yeah,
So,
million
yeah,
percent. Yeah, I mean, I think that is in terms of overproduction, there's a
yes,
balance to be struck between posting enough and posting too much.
too
So,
much.
what's great, tools like LinkedIn, you can see, compare yourself and how much you're publishing and posting with other competitors. And then you
Yeah.
can correlate that, if you take another data point that's available, how fast is your account growing versus theirs? And then if you add another data layer in, it's what are the reasons people unfollow certain brands? And
Yeah.
usually it's publishing too much content. So, that's a very important point. I think you reminded me there of one thing I would encourage businesses not to waste money on in their marketing budgets. And that is definitely doing too many pointless rebrands, I'd call them. So,
Yeah.
we saw, didn't we? The what I did post on LinkedIn about it, the Jaguar rebrand that took place, which turned, it failed. The CEO lost their job. The Jaguar lost loads of customers. So one of the iconic car brands, of this century and the manufacturing industry, really
Yeah.
iconic, decided to just put aside everything, all of its customer base and go to something that could have been the advert that they did. It was just really, it could have been anything. It could have been a fashion brand, anything. It just was so abstract. It was difficult
Yeah.
to understand. And I could just see how that had materialized. You've got a room of executives and maybe a CMO, maybe not a CMO, saying, "Oh, let's do a rebrand." You've got an agency pushing this idea that isn't a good one, and no one's brave enough to say that's a terrible idea. And 12 months down the line, the business has failed. So, at a more normal level, I think, businesses should evolve their brands, but that doesn't mean rebranding every year. And it means investing the right amount of money into that rebrand and evolving it rather than revolutionizing it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
and I hear you on that because I think if we start to look at the strategy and they really start knocking things into strategy, then they would understand that all of this rebranding every other minute, it can be a symptom also of the company being sick, like something is not right somewhere. Someone is either trying to show relevance or someone is trying to just spend a lot of money. And that in itself is a problem within. So hopefully when businesses start to see that as business owners, I think it's a good time to call in the team and go, what exactly is going on here? Why are we doing this again? Do we have to do it? And we need more CEOs, we need more business shareholders, we need more folks really, really looking at the brands and the businesses that they manage and asking those questions, so that everybody is accountable and everybody's able to help. So that it's not when everything goes bad, then we're all, ants in the hair, like, hey, why didn't anybody see this
yeah.
coming? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a question for you now, Adebola.
Yeah.
So you're an AI expert in the world.
Yeah.
You live and
I
breathe
try.
AI.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think AI has done in terms of an expectation, and it's done a lot of great things, but I think one thing when it comes to budgets is there is this thought process floating around that because AI exists, that should reduce a marketing budget because AI will produce things, AI will speed things up. What's your view on that?
I think it reduces the cost on a number of things. Like, the automation bit of things, this personalization at scale, we can talk about that all day long. And I think the personalization at scale is my most exciting aspect of what AI is doing in marketing. I want to be able to get into any brands or speak to any of my brands and see them speak back to me like they've known me for many years. If they need my data to be able to do that, then collect that data from me. And when you do that, let me see the effect of the data you're collecting because I want to actually feel like you know me when you talk to me. So all of that is what AI is doing. It's helping to forecast. We've just spoken about that as well. The spend modeling, it's doing things for marketers that usually we had to go to business school to learn. There are times when marketers had to go to MBAs because they needed to learn the finance for non-finance folks. Now when you be able to use AI, I use that quite a bit. Say, hey, teach me the financial modeling of this. When do I start to see return on investment? When do I start to prove that this is going to have to come back? That's what it's doing, and it's amazing. But it's also going to be increasing costs in some areas, and that's also just being as practical as possible. Many of the data in a lot of pipelines are not clean. We need data preparation. We need quality assurance on this data. We need somebody asking the questions. What data do we need? What story do you want to tell with that data? And that means speaking to consultants, organizations like mine, to be able to say, hey, can you come in? Can you do an audit of us? Where do our touch points come in? Where do we put in automation? Where do we take it out? All of that is your data preparation. And once you have that, then you can start to train your teams. I, as a person, usually would not consult for organizations who have not signed the aspect of the training bit of the AI application or contracts that we're having. You get what I mean? So they're like, hey, build us an AI infrastructure on this. My first question is, do you have the teams that would own this and work with it so that the training starts at the same time the infrastructure is being built. So when we start to think about who is going to own this and use it, the same time we're thinking about how we're going to build it, then we're able to actually have organizations where people don't feel left out when the technology comes and people don't feel in a limbo having to move out because they have to hire new folks who understand it. So those are important. And of course, integrating your new tools will also be expensive just because it takes a few hours to understand your data infrastructure, to understand your servers. Do you want to go hybrid? Do you want to go on-site? Do you want on-prem, like we call it? All of that conversation also can take a bit of cost, but it's just the beginning part of it. And last but not the least, of course, is governance. Just ensuring that you have a team set aside for compliance. If you're in the UK, for example, there are rules when it comes to building AI. There has to be a human in the loop. There are many other, boxes that has to be ticked off. Knowing that as a business and understanding it, your AI trust on all of that takes a bit of learning. But again, it's just the beginning part. It's going to cost a bit of money, but once you have all those ticked off, you start to see that it reduces the cost in the long term, because now it's moved your cost from production to actually precision in a way that flows without hold up, or in a way that flows in a way without any form of pauses down the line.
I think that's brilliant points in there. I think the one that really picked up in my mind is the expectation that costs can be reduced actually gives us the opportunity to do more, to invest in AI, which is so important, and equally do more. How I spin that out in my mind is, it gives us the ability to really refine and produce content for very specific groups of people, or even an individual person that fits exactly what they're looking for. So we can use AI to run across all those touch points and say, hey, this is what this person is really looking for. This is the right way to say it to them, and here are the places to deliver that to them. So whole world of opportunity there. And I think most open-minded businesses would have a part of the budget that enables the marketing team to do that investment, experiment, learn, and ultimately become better. And I don't mean that being replaced by, it's become better because we can be faster on certain things, we can be deeper on other things, can't we, now, data analysis and everything. So big advocate of that.
Cool. So would AI then be a cost saving or growth lever? Would you think, or both?
I think again, it's one of those things. In the right hands, it's a cost saver and a growth lever. In the wrong hands, it's probably neither. Probably costs will go up and no growth will happen. So I think, like anything, a big part of the timeline marketing team and the timeline wider business is no one in the business believes that they know everything or we know everything. So we've got this natural appetite to learn and learn about AI and get people to teach us things and to explore, and go on courses and drop into webinars about AI. I think that's key because we need this knowledge to be able to use it properly. The knowledge, and then the patience to be able to put in the right level of prompts and the right level of information in to get a quality output out. So I think in the wrong hands, that can all go, to a dead end. Nothing can happen. In the right hands, it could be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And lastly on that is the fact of what you're saying about the personalization still. I just feel a lot of companies are spending so much money on acquisition and we're still forgetting about memory and retention. And that's what AI does very well. But someone needs to prompt that. Someone needs to be asking that question. Someone needs to see that as part of the stories they want to tell about their customer. So we're putting a lot of energy, a lot of budget, a lot of time into the multi-touch channel, all of that, but we're thinking only about acquiring these contacts and these leads. What happens when we've gotten them? What is the loyalty programs in place? What are the trigger moments that we actually, like anniversaries, renewals, milestones, that we actually use as opportunities to re-engage them again? I really think that those are the things that a lot of companies need to start looking at, which they're currently investing in. And when you use the example at the beginning about those emails we get constantly now on LinkedIn and DMs and all that, say, hey, do you want this leads or do you want that? There's so many about leads, but nobody's asking the questions about what happens with those customers when they're now within your channel.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's as we know on the budget side,
Yeah,
the expectation and I suppose the professional obligation on us as marketers is to make sure every pound counts for something.
yeah,
So, that could be a pound in terms of an ad spend, it could be a pound invested into something else, or it could be, part of our time as professionals. We need to fully invest into making it count. Otherwise, we're not going to get a return. And equally, part of that is excluding the things from our diaries on a daily basis, from our budget that don't
yeah,
work. Um,
yeah.
that really are adding no value, that aren't taking us forward, that aren't building momentum. So, I think as a statement, a piece of advice for any marketer, it will be it's not just about money. So if the budget is cut,
Mhm.
that can be a positive thing. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily a negative thing.
yeah,
If the budget increases, again, it can be a positive thing or it can be a negative thing because, there's more opportunity that things um, will be factored in that don't work. So there's lots of these parameters going on that I think anyone facing a reduced budget in 2026
mm,
shouldn't be sitting there doom and gloom. It's still an
yeah,
opportunity. It's
yeah,
still a challenge to us as marketers to make it work and to be
yeah.
creative and to think carefully about what's going to work. How can we do things differently? Um, and these are thought processes we've all been through and we all will go through at one time or another.
Now, because we spoke about money on this particular edition, it wouldn't be cool if we didn't talk about real money. So, Tom, if
Mm.
you had £1 million to allocate for 2026, how are you going to split it percentage wise?
So I would say I'd put 30% into brand, which is brand
Okay.
campaigns. I said
Sure.
minimum of 20. I would put 30 in
Okay.
that. I would do about the same again on events
Yeah.
because getting out there is really important. Um, so there's 60% of that gone. I would put 10% into marketing technology. So that could be, new marketing tools. It could be expanding what we've already got. There could be an AI element in there as well. What am I
Yeah.
up to now? 70%. And then I would have, definitely at least 15% on digital advertising. And then CRM would take some of the remainder.
Okay.
And then I think I would leave a little bit of money just for content. And I'm saying that in the knowledge that most of the content in today's world, in my current role, is produced internally. So we've got so much content that comes internally.
Okay. 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 So my turn on that. So the only part I think we have the same percentage is brand. So we're winning with the brand. So 30% for brand for me as well. I think the trust is important. We need to do the storytelling. We need to create, put some money in the creatives and all that. Then I'm saying 25% for content and AI enabled production. Why wouldn't I say that? That's where my bread and butter is from. So yeah, so content and AI enabled production, 25%. 20% I think will be relevant for CRM just because of the life cycle part of it, the retention engine. I really, really am so passionate about the fact that the next level of marketing is now about how to get customers talking about you, coming back, speaking so much about how well you do so great for them, so much so that it becomes another form of marketing influx into your funnel. Then 15% I think can go into paid performance media. I use the word performance here just because there's some of them that would not immediately show, but like they won't bring back the pound back at you. But the performance of it, is also a part of, like events and all the likes is also part of you building the brand. And lastly, 10% will go to data infrastructure and just the experimentation fund, just things that we want to try out. Is this working? Is that not working?
Yeah.
So my philosophy is build demand, let's convert the demand, and let's sustain the demand. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think the important thing in that discussion to recognize is that it will be somewhat different for every business.
yes.
If you've got a smaller team, you're going to have to spend more on certain things. If you've got a
Yeah.
bigger team, or even down to the composition of that team, if you have a single graphic designer in your team, the output from that person can be way more because they've got on a daily basis the ability to work on creative, evolve that creative, than you would get from maybe spending that with an agency.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different factors involved in there. And equally, if you've got a great tech stack today, you maybe not having to invest as much in building that because it's already
Mhm.
there. It's just refining it, adapting it, and so on. So yeah, I mean it's a good question. One interesting fact that I found is that um, half of all small financial advice firms spend
Yeah.
less than £10,000 a year on marketing, which is probably enough for them to get a certain number of clients in, but it does limit their options somewhat, doesn't it?
By very, very large margins, yes. But I'm also very optimistic that even the financial advisory industry is going to be waking up really, really quicker in the new year. I have that vibe that it seems like maybe because I see timeline quite often on my timeline, and just looking at it as a great example of how you manage and work with those industries, it's just obvious that when you do it right, they copy from things like they go like, oh, this is working, this is inspiring, this is an example of what I would have thought in my head, but I can't put it into action.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge goes to timeline and the likes, to be able to say, if we want the financial advisory industry to actually start to do more with marketing, you need to lead by example. You need to show them how. You need to do that consistently as well and let them see the linear, like the various versions of it. So it can't be just events. It can't be just this. You guys have to be
Well,
yeah, you get what I mean? Like that's
yeah.
the what I think will be an addition to what I'll say that can be done. Because
Yeah.
like you said, they're not one type of financial advisory company. There are various types. So the only way everyone can kind of see themselves is if you are willing to also try newer things so that they can see that those things are also possible for them. By
Yeah,
the way,
definitely.
I love your new videos. They're on point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing as well. We've talked about budgets, but a business doesn't necessarily grow unless it keeps trying new things in its
Yeah.
marketing mix. So, if we just always keep doing the same things, we don't experiment, we don't add to what we've got this year. We'll just stay at the same level. And there was an industry report by it was combined Schroders, advisor benchmarking, FCA thematic reviews, and it said that 74% of UK financial advice firms say that they lack the internal marketing capacity needed for growth. So as you say, 2026 could be the year this starts to really
Yeah.
change. And I've already seen a couple of advice firms
Nice.
really game change their marketing, as we've gone through 2025. We'll maybe have to get one of them on as a guest, but
Yeah.
they're doing everything from, they've had a new website, they've got hired a marketer into the business, they've got their own YouTube channel, they're doing lots of great content. So they've recognized how marketing is definitely a pathway to growth. And long may that continue. Really great to see.
Interesting.
Hmm.
I think we had a great conversation today. It's been really fun. I've learned a lot as well, just, having this, going back and forth on some subject matters. And I hope everyone has been able to learn one thing or the other. As a form of final thought, Tom, what do you want to leave anyone with? Even a summary of what you've said today, or just something new? What's one thought you're leaving with the audience today?
I think marketing is about ultimately trying new things. And, in any budget, I think success can be agnostic of budget sometimes, or quite often. So, I've been through my career, I've had a budget of £100 right through to £12 million. The principles that work in the first state are very similar to what works in the second state. So wherever you are as a marketer, wherever you are as a business, I think marketing can really be a growth engine for your business, regardless of the size of budget. So doesn't need to be 1 million, doesn't need to be 100,000. Whatever amount of money you've got, you can make it work, and you can make it work really well.
Fantastic. For me, is the fact that no matter what it is that you're investing in next year, take your teams along with you. If you're
Yeah.
investing in AI, for example, I would really, really strongly advise that you train your teams at the same time you start to make the decision about building infrastructure. because that's the only way that those tools you've invested so much money in get used in the way that you want them to be used. And that is your return on investment. So for me, Adebola, it's been great speaking with you today, Tom.
And from me, Tom, thanks for watching. Great conversation, Adebola, and looking forward to the next time.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.